Okay, cool. So welcome to this week's spiritual journey. This week I have Rachel Maria Bell with me. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So I invited Rachel on this week because we've just had, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, I don't know about you, Rachel, Imbal. Imbal?
Imbal. Yeah.
It's spelled with a C on the end, isn't it? But it's silent.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but it's very much sort of about rebirth, and I feel as if there's all these sort of like new beginnings coming up, etc. But your story, honestly, for me, I found it fascinating. So I thought I really wanted to get you on here to share it. So you've accessed one of your past lives, which is massive, isn't it? So can you tell me sort of when you first recognized, or when you first managed to access this past life?
Yeah. Okay. So it was only in about 2016 that I realised that I was looking at a past life awakening and a past life story as part of my own spiritual awakening, because of the volume of spiritual messages and experiences that I had. It kind of went from very low level to massive, suddenly huge. But I had lots of spiritual experiences happen in my childhood, specifically with the Brontes. So when the Brontes came back in 2016, it was initially a big surprise, but also not at the same time, because I had all this experience in the past, but I deliberately shut them out at the age of 22 because of a very bad experience that happened. And I just thought, I'm weird. I don't like this. I'm not ready to face it. I was going through a really bad time in my personal life, and being able to see dreadful things that were happening that took me into a different phase of time just freaked me out. I didn't realize that there was anything connected with me. I just thought, I'm going somewhere that I don't want to be. So I ran away from it. I was like, no, I'm not having any of this. Yeah.
So when you talk about the Brontes, so
yes.
Your past life was as a member of the Bronte family, is that correct?
It was, yeah. And it's taken me a long time to accept that. So even when I started having daily communication that revolved around the Brontes in 2016, it took me until the end of 2017 to actually come into the awakening that I was that close. And the reason why I had such a volume of communication going on is because I did live a past life with them. And actually, by the time that came in, I was ready for it, and I was almost desperate for an explanation by that point. But I did keep trying to rationalize it and go, okay, I'm receiving messages that I need to write this down, I need to think about it. But there was all the overthinking and overanalyzing that was going on all the time. And I think I was actually blocking myself from just receiving the wisdom by constantly thinking, because you can't really, this isn't something you can think into. It's definitely a feeling.
So how were they communicating with you? So you were saying you were receiving stuff. So was it that you were having dreams about them, or was it that you were purposefully sitting and meditating? How were they communicating with you?
Okay, many different forms. Okay, so it's a great question. I ought to have this written down on a list. Dreams was one thing. So I would have these really profound and always really enjoyable dreams, and I'd feel like I felt really good and really loving, like I'd seen the Brontes, like I'd seen them and I knew them, and like I just felt so at home with myself after having these dreams. And quite often I'd have a dream that would be so profound that I'd wake myself up from it, and then in the middle of the night, when you're calm and present, and there's no other interference of what's going on, then I would be receiving information as well. So there'd be, the dreams to interpret, because quite often, the dream would have a certain feeling with it, but then a few days later I'd go, oh, like there's a deeper, multi-layered meaning to what's going on here. And quite often the middle of the night waking up, which is, why I decided to call my book and channel Waking Up with the Brontes, because I literally was waking up and somebody was there chatting to me in the night. And sometimes it would just be literal communication. They'd just be very direct with me and ask me to work something out, or ask me to look at a certain portion of a certain book, guide me to a certain place. It was so multi-formatted that it's difficult to say, oh yeah, it was just this. It was many times. But also I would notice that particularly Anne Bronte would come to me during the daytime, and the others it was a little bit more dreams and nighttime. But Anne, it was any time during the day. I was already tending her grave and looking after her grave, but I didn't know that I had a past life with her. I knew something was going on, because the day that I started doing it, I could hear chatter, and I was like, come on, you guys, all I'm doing is planting a rose. Like, what is going on here? So yeah, she was a lot more daytime and a lot more I'm going to say bright. There was a light energy whenever Anne came in. And sometimes I'd just be like stirring the soup in the kitchen, and I'd make a mental note to say, oh, that's something that I need to maybe try and connect with Anne about and ask her about, and the answer would be right there, and I think, oh, she can hear me.
So, like, in terms of saying, that she was with you through the day, did you already have the ability to be able to communicate with spirits prior to them coming in 2016?
Yes, but I was in denial about it. I kept this hidden from most people and from myself because I was really scared of it. I was hyper aware of it as a child, and I made the decision then that I would be called crazy if I came out with what was happening and what I could see and what I was experiencing, and this extra levels of stuff that I just somehow knew. And I thought, no, people just aren't going to accept this, because I was quite aware that if people weren't talking about it, then it wasn't other people's experiences. So I did have that shutdown layer, but I would say from about 2011 onwards, there was like this gradual easing into me remembering gifts that I had in the past and being able to communicate. So in 2012, just as an example, I had a miscarriage, but after I'd had that miscarriage, it was so obvious to me that I'd been communicating with my unborn daughter for that period of time that it was really profound. And I continued to have that communication with her. And at that point, I was like, oh yeah, I communicate with spirit. This is how it is.
So it was like starting to remember again.
Yes, and accept it. I think self-acceptance was the massive thing for me. It does feel a little bit weird talking to other people about it still, but the big thing for me was just going, why have I not been trusting myself? Why have I been just almost cutting off at source that intuitive ability that was there? And there were many times when I've known things, like I've known what gender baby somebody's going to have, or I've had a name or a date that they will be born, all this kind of stuff. And I've just not framed it to myself as this is psychic ability, but it is, isn't it?
And I think as well, with you saying earlier on about, that people will think you're crazy, and I'm sure that like there might be someone watching this going, what the hell is this woman on about? Do you know what I mean? And I've had it myself. I've had people saying to me, like, after I spoke to George Michael's spirit, I had someone message me on my website and said, God, you were talking a load of shite, aren't you? And I was just like, I know that it happens. So, and like I've had Winston Churchill through in the last few weeks, and then Mother Teresa last week. I was doing my yoga and she was just there, and I was just like, hi, but I'm doing my yoga.
Oh wow.
Do you know what I mean? And I think it's like, you know, these people who have been very well known, they're in spirit, just like someone's grandma or someone's granddad, etc. So why can you not access them? So why do you feel that you've been shown or you're accessing this past life right now? Why do you feel it's really important?
Okay, so there are other past lives I've been able to access as well. However, because of the level of attention and obsession and work that has been done around the Brontes, and the fact that they are world famous, there is a house that has been preserved. There are multiple books, movies, creative works created around them. This is so multifaceted. I don't even have a handle on the purpose yet, I'll be honest with you. But there are many, many levels of purpose of it. One level that I didn't even put together for quite a long time was that this was connected with my personal healing. So accessing themes from that particular past life, where I was the eldest Bronte sister who died in childhood, accessing those themes have helped me in what's going on in my personal life, and being able to understand patterns of abuse that then you can understand is actually happening on a much wider scale in the collective. So I perceive that a lot of people are going through that kind of thing. But the level of detail that I am able to access goes way beyond what I can see, because I can look back at what has been written and preserved and looked into about my own past life. So it's on a whole other level of detail.
That must be really weird. Sorry, do you know what I mean? Being able, like, reading these books that are talking about you in a lifetime, and I can imagine sometimes you must read and be like, that did not happen.
Well, and you know what? That is one really major thing why it was like a massive weight off my shoulders to find out who I was, because all of my life I'd had these really intense personal reactions to reading things about the Brontes, because I was always intensely connected myself. I was like obsessed, so excited, enthralled, but I would read things and go, no, what are you saying? And I'd be so angry, but I would have to try and feel like I was containing that. But there were lots of things that, you know, my heart would almost beat out of its chest. I'd be going, no, this wasn't right. This isn't right. This was written, but people have run away with it. They've said this that's wrong. Well, no. And I actually trying to contain that and go, why the heck am I having these intense reactions is another layer of healing for me, so that I can stop having the boom explosive reactions. But there are many levels of potential for teaching. My background is as a teacher, and I always remember when I was teaching, I would say to students, don't just repeat theory to me, give me examples to show that you know the knowledge. And I really feel like that's what I'm doing now. So I could sit here and just say, hey, here's the value of accessing your past life. But no, actually what I could say is, I have these feelings of guilt inside me that I've carried all my life, because I knew, here's just one tiny example, I knew as Maria Bronte that I was going to die. I had a message from God that was my role, okay? So I was going to be involved in the Bronte life, but from above.
Wow.
Right? Why didn't I say that to my family? Oh my God, they went through grief upon grief upon grief. I could have said, it's okay, I'm prepared to die. I've had a message from God. I didn't say that. I let them pray and cry. And that is such a personal thing for me. But to release that has helped heal me, them. Potentially just a tiny little story like that may actually have an impact for someone else. I don't know.
Yeah, because sometimes, like, and I know when I first obviously came into this world, if you like I just had this awareness of me as a physical being. Do you know what I mean? And I never really thought that there was anything else. Like, I didn't really get it. I always felt like there was something in my house, do you know what I mean? And I remember becoming fascinated by ghosts and everything. But it wasn't really until I went and learned Reiki in 2008 that I learned about like our energy body and our aura and how, and then I was like a sponge, just absorbing so much stuff and reading about past lives. And I remember reading, is it like Many Souls, Many Bodies by Brian Weiss?
Oh, Many Masters. Oh, amazing book.
Yeah, yeah.
Lovely.
Brilliant books.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my days, I wonder who I was as a past life. And then you go and find out. And like you said, you know, sometimes some of the stuff that we're carrying with us is like hundreds of years, potentially thousands of years old. And it's like, and this is the feeling that I get, like especially this year and last year, that people are starting to heal their past lives as they've begun to heal themselves as well.
Yes.
And it's like ending that karma.
Yeah.
Is that
absolutely that's definitely what we get. Absolutely. And I honestly believe, from what I've been through, I believe that many people on earth right now are having an awakening, and they have no idea that they're having an awakening.
Yeah.
But you know what, the if you look at the history of what has been going on in Europe, in the world, for the past couple of millennia or more, it's been war. We have been completely under patriarchal control. There has been so much war. How many of us have been killed in a war, had our families torn apart? Some people are very conscious of it. Some people have got that in their family. You know, they will be like, oh, my granddad was killed in the war, my uncle, or whatever. But some of us, you know, we've all got these past lives. I can remember a life as a soldier. I have no idea what was going on, what year it was. I think it was in France. I was on a horse. I thought I was a real dandy. I thought I was amazing. Check me out. I'm going to war. It was horrendous. Somebody I loved very, very much was killed in front of my eyes. And I remember having that horrific shock separation. Now, if other people come into some variety of awareness, but they're not actually seeing what happened or framing it as a past life, then what we would see is the rise of the far right. People kind of waking up and going, who did that to me? And looking for recompense and feeling like a them and us thing.
Yeah.
Because perhaps in their most recent past life, they died on the front line, or do you know what I mean? And there could be so many people going through this whole awakening, but we've not been taught to frame it in this way.
Yeah. Or how to access them. And then when you access the past life, it's like, right, what do I do now with this knowledge? Do you know what I mean? And when I was talking on my radio show last night with David Sear, I was saying to him, you know, I think sometimes people are scared of accessing the past life because it's like, what if I was Hitler? Do you know what I mean? Worst case. Or what if I was someone who was really awful?
I know.
But it's sort of like looking at the different layers of yourself, isn't it? Like, as a multifaceted person, you know, it's like our physical and soul being, and it's healing all that stuff in the past, isn't it, as well as obviously in the now.
Absolutely. But you know, I do believe that we've all been on both sides of it. I think we've experienced everything that there is to experience so that our soul can grow and know it from different perspectives. And perhaps, you know, sometimes I think that the fact that I have quite a big thing at the moment about the fact that reincarnation and karma have been almost obliterated from Western consciousness, and now it's coming back. People are realizing, you know, there was a point in history where this was just erased from collective consciousness, and the amount that has damaged and gaslighted people religiously, it's basically religious abuse and spiritual abuse, that people are coming back into awareness of this kind of stuff, and it's massive. These concepts are so huge, and sometimes we will perceive this karma and we don't know whether it belongs to us, whether it belongs to someone else. So healers and empaths, they're drawn towards being able to heal people. They're getting into these relationships that are abusive, or they're trying to resolve something from a past life, and they may be taking on other people's karma. So there's such value in us trying to get to grips with these concepts and understand what belongs to us, what belongs to somebody else.
Definitely, and that's a conversation I have with a lot of people. I'm like, right, what belongs to you and what is theirs? Do you know what I mean? Is it your stuff or is it theirs? And I think that's a really big question to ask, isn't it? But it does make you sit back and go, well, is it me or is it theirs? Do you know what I mean? And it can really help with establishing boundaries and understanding more of yourself, etc. Can't it? So
yeah, absolutely.
So in terms of the Brontes and them still being in your life, sort of like, where are you which direction are you going with it at the minute?
So right at the end of 2019, I received the guidance that I was done with having to go back and retrieve parts of myself or heal aspects of my life or the sort of family life. So now I feel that a big part of my karma is simply talking about it. So there's a real energy of brightness, lightness, moving forward. I have never overly resonated with the whole dark gothic energy that the Brontes kind of bring in. You know, the way that I experience them is very different to that. So Anne is completely standing in the light. She is very much like, let's move forward, come on, it's all feminine energy, we're moving forward. She's been waiting for this for a long time. Her book was like 170 years in advance, and she's like, finally people are catching on, come on Rachel, let's just move this all forward. So there's a real bright, happy, forward-moving energy now. I don't know whether you can see all these messages that keep popping up on my screen.
No, it's fine.
I can't turn off the Wi-Fi, otherwise you won't see me. So yeah, and I have a lot of joy whenever I'm conscious that any of the Brontes are around. I have profound levels of joy, or finding something, you know, one of the things that they choose to do, and it might not even be in one of their books, but is pick up a book and really, really connect with them, and I'll just go to a page that means something. So quite a lot can be found in books. As you know, I really resonate with numbers as well. So there seems to be a big forward momentum, and I am now moving into a more spiritual career because one of my passions is astrology. I've been studying astrology since I was 16, but not talking about it again. Lots of, you know, keep it all secret, keep it all silent. And now it's finally time to release everything and be able to use my gifts to help others in understanding their own intuitive energy potentials.
Oh, it's exciting, Rachel. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Honestly, I just think it's absolutely fascinating. I love how, like, you've been able to access it, do you know what I mean? And how they've been able to come through and just share sort of like their stories with you as well. I just find it absolutely amazing.
Thank you. There is so much to say, which is why I've written a book on it, because it's very hard to kind of hone it all down. But thank you very much for having me.
What's your book called about them? Is the book called Waking Up?
It's called Waking Up with the Brontes. Yeah, it's my awakening story.
Do you have a date for release or?
No, I'm still doing the final edit, because there have been so many times I've gone, yeah, I'm done with the book, yeah. And I've had a publisher, and then I'm like, no, wrong publisher, you're not done with the book. So there's been quite a bit of going back, but now it really is the final edit.
Fabulous. Oh, you'll have to keep us updated, Rachel, and let us know when it's out.
I will do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thanks, Lindsay. Nice to talk to you. Bye-bye.